Welcome to today's presentation. I will be speaking on breaking silence, embracing power, unveiling cultural barriers to self-advocacy. My name is Nadine Robinson and I am the founder of MP Narratives Limited, and this presentation is brought to you today in partnership with Maya's Legacy. So before we deep dive into the heart of the presentation, let me just introduce myself to you. As I mentioned before, my name is Nadine Robinson, and essentially what I do at MP Narratives Limited is that I am a certified journal therapist and life coach, and I use my writing therapies and coaching expertise as a well-being catalyst. With this, I like to infuse joy and healing across mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual realms. I've authored transformative workbooks because I believe that discomfort is overrated. I've also released my debut poetry collection because I also believe that self-expression is a must around here. My mission is to help organisations and anyone I've come into contact with embark on a mission to demolish discrimination, ignite their self-discovery, and champion authenticity. And some of these themes are going to come up today. Consider this your empowerment journey. In today's session, we are going to embark on understanding the essence of self-advocacy. We'll explore how asserting our needs and beliefs contributes to our personal empowerment and why it's a crucial tool for navigating life's challenges. To summarize this, think of it as us exploring insights and strategies to empower ourselves and ways in which we can step toward embracing our voice and reclaiming our power. So let's shift our focus to the concept of self-advocacy. For individuals within the Afro-Caribbean diaspora, self-advocacy and personal empowerment hold a profound significance in navigating multifaceted cultural landscapes. The importance of self-advocacy lies at the heart of reclaiming agency, voice, and the identity within a historical context. And when we're talking about the historical context, we're thinking about things such as colonialism, systemic oppression, and cultural complexities. So let's shift our focus towards how we can take ownership over the narratives. So one way for us to do that is through cultural identity preservation. And in the realms of self-advocacy, this means that we are preserving and celebrating our cultural identity. Within the Afro-Caribbean diaspora, we have a rich tapestry of traditions, languages, and customs. And for this reason, it's really important for us as individuals to reinforce the value and significance of our cultural heritage. Another way that we can go as well is through challenging historical oppression, the history of slavery, colonialism, and now what we know as the existing systemic discrimination. It's made us stifled when it comes to how we are amplifying our voices within the Afro-Caribbean community. So self-advocacy in this lens means that we serve as a tool to challenge the historical injustices, fostering resilience and resistance against societal structures that attempt to suppress autonomy and equality of who we are as individuals and as a collective. We also have to consider what it means to navigate diverse cultural norms. And as an Afro-Caribbean community, we encompass diverse cultural norms. They're ranging from varying communication styles to approaches to societal interactions. So again, in this aspect of self-advocacy, it's really pivotal for us to understand how navigating these nuanced norms allow us as individuals to express our needs and beliefs while respecting cultural traditions and values. Addressing stigmas and taboos is another big thing that helps with us enhancing, improving, and amplifying our voice. Within certain Afro-Caribbean communities, stigmas and taboos surrounding mental health, trauma, and sensitive issues often perpetuate a culture of silence. So I know for some of us, the idea of like us not talking our business outside of the home, children not being able to be in big people places because grown folks are talking, those types of stigmas and taboos are things that do suppress our voice. And when we're thinking about self-advocacy, it becomes important for us to learn how to break the silence. So putting ourselves in situations and being open and willing to foster open and honest dialogues with each other whilst seeking support without being fearful of judgment and shame. So this could be things such as coaching. It could be things as simple as just having a support system that you know you can turn to. So this could be support groups, this could be having periods of time when you have therapy, and ideally therapy with a therapist who is culturally sensitive to your needs. Lastly, we can think about fostering empowerment and resilience. And what I mean by this is that empowerment through self-advocacy nurtures resilience. It enables us to confront challenges, overcome obstacles, and drive positive change within our communities. It encourages a sense of agency and promotes active participation in decision-making processes and community initiatives. And now more than ever, these things are highly important. So now that we have looked at some of the fundamental ways we can navigate this sphere of self-advocacy, I want us to kind of switch gears now and think about how cultural backgrounds impacts perceptions and behaviours that relate to self-advocacy. Our cultural tapestry influences our perceptions and actions in profound ways, and for this reason it's important for us to unravel how diverse cultural backgrounds shape our approaches towards self-advocacy. So in this portion of the presentation, we will discover the richness and complexity of cultural influences on asserting ourselves. But before we deep dive into that, I want you to just have your pen and paper ready and think about this self-reflective invitation. How has your cultural background influenced your approach to asserting your needs or beliefs in various situations? And when you think about this, this can be recent experiences, this could be things that you may have witnessed other people go through, so family members, friends, colleagues. It could be something that even came up in your childhood and now you're reflecting on it in hindsight. So allow yourself to just write freely with these short reflective invitations. It's an opportunity for you to really explore your feelings, your beliefs, and how it makes you feel within this moment. So please do not feel that you have to censor yourself in any way. Don't think that it has to make sense or things have to add up or you have to find the answers by the time you reach the end of this presentation. That's not what this is about. And if needs be, have these reflections has things that you can refer back to for yourself. So you're kind of going to be in a position where you're creating your own resource well-being kit. So for many of us, how our childhood trauma can affect our ability to advocate for ourselves is quite a big one when it comes to our adult life. And because of that, it's important for us to understand that our childhood experience leave lasting imprints. And for this reason, it's some of our early moments more than anything that affect our comfort in expressing ourselves. So through things like journaling, through things like talking, therapy, spending time with ourselves in introspection, we can uncover the roots of our ability or hesitation to advocate for ourselves as adults. What I want you to do now is to reflect on any childhood experiences that might have shaped your comfort level in expressing yourself. And then I want you to start unpacking how do you think this impacts your present actions? Because sometimes we do not take into consideration how much of what we do has been learnt from our younger years. So I'm hoping that you spent maybe 10 to 15 minutes on that last self-reflective invitation, because now I want you to think of the secrecy, so the code of silence. It's important for us to discuss the prevalent cultural norm of secrecy and its impact on self-discovery. Again, this goes back to what we were saying before in regards to us as a Black community not also feeling like we should be speaking about things that are impacting us. One, because we might not want to burden anybody, or we may often feel overlooked, or we feel as though we're just going to get dismissed when we do start to speak up. It can become very, very toxic, and it is a vicious cycle. So with breaking the silence, we know that that can be extremely transformative. So as you start to navigate what you do in regards to your behaviors and your attitudes and how you're showing up within this whole scope of societal norms around secrecy, it's important for you to also understand the power of your self-expression. So I want you to start thinking about fostering the following factors. So let's think about some of these cultural norms that do exist. We've got the mental health stigma, and we know in many Afro-Caribbean communities there is a stigma surrounding mental health issues. Silence is often maintained around the topics of depression, anxiety, or trauma due to cultural taboos. And this secrecy hampers individuals' ability to seek help or to advocate for their mental health needs. Some things are centered around family matters being kept behind closed doors. And again, family issues, conflicts, or personal struggles are often kept private within the Afro-Caribbean households. The pressure to maintain a facade of unity and harmony can also hinder individuals from trying to speak up about their challenges or seeking external support when it's needed. Lastly, we've got generational trauma. So again, going back to those historical traumas such as slavery and colonialism, and how we are left with enduring scars. The legacy of these experiences might lead to a culture of silence around discussing or acknowledging these traumas, and therefore they're going to start to impact our ability to express our feelings and advocate for what we need in order to heal. So some other factors that we can also take into consideration are things such as gender-based expectations. So these are the expectations that help to reinforce the silence, especially when it comes to women of colour and around certain topics. So this could be about abuse, reproductive health, and gender discrimination. The societal pressures to conform to specific roles can also limit our ability to want to advocate for ourselves, whether that's our rights, our needs within our personal or professional settings. We should also consider things such as cultural values and image. So upholding that positive image or honour for the family is deeply embedded within the Afro-Caribbean cultures. So what this does is emphasise on maintaining a certain reputation, and because of this, individuals deter from speaking about their personal struggles or injustices that they are faced with. And this is due to their judgment being tarnished by the family, and again, just letting down those cultural norms that have been kind of imposed onto us. A big one that tends to come up a lot is religious and spiritual beliefs. And this is because these forms of beliefs influence our perception of discussing certain issues openly. For instance, seeking mental health support could clash with the beliefs about relying solely on your faith as a form of healing. And this can lead to hesitancy when it comes to advocating for help. And this has been shown a lot when it comes to professional settings. So that's something that you should really take into consideration. How are your spiritual or religious beliefs impacting how you speak up and amplify your voice? So again, I want you to take another 10 to 15 minutes and really think about, have you ever felt pressure to keep silent about something? And if so, how did that impact your ability to express yourself or to go and seek support? So we've covered quite a bit so far, but one of the areas that is like fundamental, is key when it comes to self-advocacy, it's confidence. And addressing the role of confidence and self-worth in advocating for yourself is vital to how you are going to start showing up, not only for you, but for others within your community. Confidence, again, is key. And for us to explore that, we have to think about our perceptions of ourselves and how this affects our willingness to speak up. So let us just take this time to begin the process of uncovering strategies that are going to help us boost confidence and assert ourselves in a more effective way. Before we start to take that road down the path of confidence, I want you to again take this time, pause the video, and reflect on a recent situation where you wished you advocated for yourself, but you refrained from doing so, considering how your confidence level impacted your decision making. And with this, I want you to envision a scenario with increased confidence. detailing how you would approach the situation differently now, and list 3 strategies to enhance your confidence in your future self-advocacy situations. Now, when you do this, hopefully some of the things that you have put down in regards to your strategies may come up in the next few slides. But I really want you to try and explore this moment without any influence, just so you can really grasp where you're at. And then once you do see the factors that are coming up, you'll be more inclined to have more realistic and practical ways in which you can integrate them into how you move forward in your decision making and your navigation of breaking those cultural barriers. So when we think about our confidence, there are a few things that come up, especially when I've worked with clients from the Afro-Caribbean diaspora. And one of the main things that always comes up is imposter syndrome. And what imposter syndrome is when we feel like we're struggling with feelings of inadequacy, or we're doubting our abilities, or we're questioning why we are deserving of our success in whatever form or realm that's in. And because of this lack of confidence, it really hinders the willingness of those within the Black community to advocate for themselves in various settings, especially when it is within the education and the professional settings, more so corporate settings. So ways in which you can counteract this is by encouraging self-affirmations. And alongside this, I would like to include affirmations. And the difference between the two is affirmation could be I am enough, where an affirmation is why am I enough? And when you question the why, your brain naturally starts to provide you with information to support why you are enough. If you just say I am enough and you don't put any work or effort into it, you don't know how to measure when you feel like you're enough and when you don't feel like you're enough, it's really hard for your brain to support that statement. You're asking yourself to believe something that you might not necessarily believe within that moment, and that's quite hard to do. And then when you feel as though you're not achieving that, then it then adds more fuel to the fire of feeling unworthy. Another way is setting achievable goals, but also recognizing your achievements. So it's one thing to set goals, but make sure you are celebrating every step of the way in achieving that goal. So that's the small wins to the overall big win at the end. By doing this, what you're basically doing is combating the imposter syndrome. You are putting 2 fingers up to that inner critic that you have. And a way you can kind of start to formulate and see how this is happening is by creating lists of your strengths and successes. A good way would be to maybe use a SWOT analysis where you think about your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities that will arise from these things, and any threats that might come up, so you can already counteract those or have some sort of plan in place to navigate it. Another factor that comes up when we think about enhancing our confidence is cultural expectations yet again. And with the cultural expectations and societal norms within the Afro-Caribbean community, sometimes it can feel like we place pressure on ourselves to conform or downplay our strengths and opinions in order to kind of fit in. This may give us a sense of belonging, because a lot of us do feel displaced, but it's more detrimental than it is supportive and empowering when it comes to enhancing your confidence. So by asserting yourself empathetically, you can do this through attending communication workshops or even doing role play exercises. You're able to empower yourself to express your thoughts and needs confidently while still respecting your cultural values at the same time. So another key thing to consider is fear of rejection or judgment. And for some of us, when we think about being rejected or criticized or judged, it instantly starts to chip away at our confidence. And then at the end of it, it's leading us to be more hesitant when it comes to advocating for ourselves. So it's important for us to know that fear can sometimes stem from cultural as well as societal pressures within the Afro-Caribbean community. But how can we tackle this is what you're probably thinking. And one way we can do that, again, is to start leaning on our resilience, and coping mechanisms that help us manage our fear and anxieties that are associated with speaking up. So techniques such as mindfulness or visualization exercises can really help to assist you in boosting your confidence, but it also allows you to have ways of engaging within challenging conversations and situations with less discomfort. It may feel like you're coming out of your comfort zone at first, but like with anything, the more you practice it, the easier that it becomes for you to adopt. So really take time to, again, maybe do some role plays, or maybe journal and write down what resilience means to you. How do you define this? What coping mechanisms do you have but maybe you're not reaching for? Because sometimes we can be our own self-critic. We can judge ourselves a lot. Again, going back to imposter syndrome. So try and unpack these things and then slowly start to scaffold what works for you. Lastly, we can think about things such as language and communication barriers. And for some people, navigating different languages or dialects within the Afro-Caribbean communities and beyond can become a barrier that really does impact our confidence when it comes to expressing ourselves effectively, let alone advocating for ourselves. So ways of having support through the language barriers is maybe seeking translation services or language classes, even YouTube, Duolingo. There's lots of apps out there that can help. We can also empower ourselves by being more vocal in needing that help. I think a lot of self-advocacy does stem from just taking that first step to recognize what's happening, what you're finding challenging, what you're struggling to navigate, and seeking the help that you need to help you really dissect, work through, and overcome that. A lot of these things are accessible to us, but sometimes it's, again, that fear of judgment, that fear of rejection, that self-doubt that we have that can hold us back. So definitely lean into more of that compassionate side of yourself and understand that we all have to start somewhere. And it's going to take time. Even the alphabet doesn't just jump from A to Z. We still have to go through all of the other letters to get to the end. So just be patient with yourself during this time of discovery and exploration. So what about those diverse social norms within the Afro-Caribbean communities? Within these communities lie diverse social norms that influence communication and expression. So it's important for us to be able to discuss these diverse social norms to help each other understand the nuances within Afro-Caribbean communities. These are the things that are going to help shape our self-advocacy ultimately. So it's about encouraging reflection on how these norms influence our ability to assert ourselves and seek support effectively. So let's briefly unpack 3 culturally diverse norms that currently exist today. So one is collectivism versus individualism, and within the Afro-Caribbean community, it's often emphasized that we have a lot of collective values, where the welfare of the group takes precedence over the individual's desires. Again, going back to what we spoke about earlier in regards to us silencing ourselves. So the societal norms can affect our self-advocacy, and therefore individuals begin to prioritize the harmony of the collective and the community over asserting their own personal needs or opinions. This, again, is very self-explanatory in why this is a disservice to self, because I honestly believe that for there to be big, meaningful, impactful change, we have to do the individual work first. We have to be able to grasp what it means to exist in our own individuality, our own identities, take ownership and autonomy over that in order to become a strong, solid pillar within the community. Imagine if we all worked on ourselves and we all figured out what our strengths were, what our views and beliefs were, and then we came together. It would literally be like an Avengers Assembles moment. The next aspect is about respect for authority and elders. So respect for authority figures, including our elders, is deeply ingrained in the Afro-Caribbean culture. This cultural norm can influence self-advocacy by creating a reluctance to challenge or question authority, even when it might be necessary to assert yourself. I, speaking from personal experience, understand the level of respect that we have for our elders. However, we do ourselves grow and we mature and we too become mini elders. And because of that, it's really important for you to be able to speak up for yourselves. An example of this for me, to kind of break this almost unhealthy cycle of silencing my children, is creating space for us to have open, honest conversation. And by doing that, it enables my children to be able to come to me with things that they may not feel comfortable talking to their peers about or other authority figures about. And by doing that, it means that they are, one, learning from an early age what self-advocacy and self-expression is about, but two, it's also making them stand very steadfast in the truths that they have and the beliefs that they have and why, and knowing that it is safe to be able to do so in regards to speaking out and speaking out loudly and proudly about any concerns or issues or needs and wants that they have. Lastly, we are going back to the big communication styles and indirectness. The communication styles within the Afro-Caribbean community might involve indirectness or implicit communication. This subtly can impact our self-advocacy as individuals because it means that we might start to struggle with expressing our needs directly and then relying on a more nuanced sense of cues and non-verbal communication to kind of do the work for us. And again, things can easily get lost in translation when we are not being direct, when we are not being clear and concise about what it is that we are needing and wanting from others, or at times even with ourselves, we can go around the merry-go-bush without really taking into account that it's really simple in what we're needing and we're just blowing it out of proportion. And some of this stuff again can stem from other things that we've spoken about already. So imposter syndrome, it can stem from feeling as though we need to carve out space to fit in. So instead of being our full self, we're only going to show up as half of ourselves just to make it easier and more palatable for others. So we have covered quite a bit already in this presentation, and what I really want you to start thinking about now before I leave you today is what it means to overcome these barriers, but through a lens of empowerment, because empowerment truly awakes us. And this presentation was for you to see that we have a treasure trove of strategies to help us overcome those cultural barriers that inhabit our self-advocacy. So as we move forward towards the end, I want you to just take some time to uncover the actionable steps that you can take to reclaim your voice and assert your needs with more confidence and ease. So to do this, we've got one final self-reflective invitation, and this is going to be one that allows you to list 3 actionable steps that you can take to start advocating for yourself more effectively in your daily life. Just 3 steps, that's it. And I want you to take at least 20 minutes to do this. This isn't something that I want you to rush through. I really want you to take the time and unpack the whys in between. So your step could be, I am going to start journaling at least once a week. And it might be once a week because that is what is practical and realistic for what your lifestyle is like now. You may have lots of work commitments, you may have a partner, you may have a family that you're raising, you may be a caregiver, and sometimes your time might be limited. So when you're doing it, really think about your whys, your hows, your whens, and also make note of when are you going to know that you have achieved this step. How are you making this measurable? There is no point making a goal and you're just endlessly doing stuff without really being able to track the progress and knowing, okay, I've reached the end now, I have attained this, let's move on to the next actionable step that we've put in place. So how did you find that final self-reflective invitation? Hopefully you were able to put some steps in place that will help you to succeed in navigating those cultural barriers that you may be finding challenging. But my last message to you is about what can you take away from this webinar in some simple bullet points. Hopefully you've increased your awareness and understanding about what it means to exist within cultural norms and how to navigate that, and how you can start to show up for yourself within certain spaces that you are positioned in. But I want you to take these takeaways and these outcomes with you. The first one being understanding that cultural influence is about how cultural backgrounds affect self-advocacy behaviors, the impact of our childhood and cultural norms, and the ways in which that those experiences are prevalent to reinforcing this idea of secrecy and how it affects our self-expression and advocacy. Understanding 100% that confidence is vital. So acknowledging the importance of confidence in effective self-advocacy and exploring strategies to help you boost that is essential. Also getting to grips with diverse social norms. So taking time to learn about various social norms within the Afro-Caribbean community and the impact on advocating for ourselves and then for our collectives. I want us to also take time to sit with what it means to overcome these barriers. So acquiring those actionable strategies to overcome those cultural barriers that may be hindering us is key in regards to us really taking that leap forward in just being the versions of ourselves that we want to be. And then lastly, taking that time to really settle into empowerment and growth. So realizing that self-advocacy contributes to our personal development, our personal empowerment, our resilience, and positive community engagement. So you have made it to the end of this webinar, and hopefully this has been an empowering and encouraging journey that you've just taken with me. I hope to connect with you soon outside of this fair, and if you are wanting to work with me, please feel free to scan the QR code or connect with me on the social media links that have been provided. This has been your invitation to do what is necessary for yourselves and those within your community to start to break down those cultural barriers that may be holding you back in turning up as the best version of self that you know yourself to be. I want to take this moment to also thank Maya's Legacy for providing yet another series and service to help those within the community really get grounded and rooted in who they are and therefore becoming pillars within their community, whether that's familial, professional, or personal. Hopefully I'll get to engage and speak with you all soon.